Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us on the CCA California podcast. Good to be with you another week. My name is Chris. I'm joined by Mr. Darren Kryle as usual. Darren, what's good, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm super excited. My kid's coming home for Christmas.
Nice. That's always good.
Comes home on the 21st.
Nice. Very well. That's coming up next week.
Yep.
Hell yeah, I like it. And of course, joining us, Tonie. How are you?
Good. Just chugging along.
Yeah.
As per usual.
Yeah. Per usual. I mean, I think we were just talking about this before we came on. Like, it's busier right now than it needs to be, or than it usually is. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's busier than it needs to be, that's for sure.
Yeah. And joining us today, we have Mike Stevens from Western Outdoor News. Mike, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you?
Good morning. Great. Thanks for the invite.
Nice.
Glad we could finally connect. I know I had to reschedule on you a couple times.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good, man. It's all good. You're here, which all that matters. But let's start with the basics here. When was the last time you went out, and what'd you do?
I haven't been out in saltwater in, I guess it would have been around September. We take a couple trips on the options at a Pier Point, six-pack, and really fun boat to go on. I get to go once or twice every year. I love island stuff, overnight island stuff. Captain West on the options is fun to fish with. I mean, I come back telling people that I've never been on a trip where I laugh as much and learn as much as when I'm on that boat. Like, I find myself writing down Wes's one-liners in my notes. It's because there's so many of them and I don't want to forget them. So right there in all my notes about how the fishing is and what we're doing is like a quote from Wes, and just a fun operation.
Yeah, and that's a cool little boat too. I mean, it's nice. Have you seen it, Darren?
No.
Options. It's fantastic.
They refer to it as the world's biggest small boat or the world's smallest big boat. And that is a perfect description of it. Like, when you're on it, it feels like you're on like a regular 3/4 day boat. But when you look at it, like when you're walking up to it, it looks just like a bigger 6-pack.
Right.
But he has got those Channel Islands down. I mean, this week he's got limits of white sea bass like a week ago.
Oh
for
my gosh.
the whole boat. Yeah, there'll be a photo of that in the next paper. But
Nice.
yeah, he'll go out there after sea bass. If everyone's after bluefin, he'll still charge right through them and fish halibut and sea bass. So
I like it.
Yeah, it's
I
fun.
like that.
Oh man, I don't normally hear about sea bass like in November, December. It's usually still bluefin because everyone's gung ho about bluefin, but sea bass and halibut too.
Yeah. He had a halibut mixed in. I think part of my caption that I wrote for it was, "What month is it?"
Yeah.
It's the beginning of this month. So he's still on them, and it's one of my favorite operations to go at.
Nice.
I'm very much a sport boat guy. I love it. I still jump on afternoon half days.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I love it.
So you live down in San Marcos, but are you going down to San Diego, or are you jumping up the coast?
I fish a lot out of Dana Wharf. If I'm doing local stuff, I go out of Dana Wharf, but all everywhere. Seaforth, San Diego.
All
depends on it depends on for fishing islands what's going on, or if I'm doing the really local stuff, I go out of Dana because I really like just fishing. I'll pull on short calicos all day long and eat boat burgers and just love it.
Music to my ears, man. Music to my ears. I like it. That's up Darren's alley too.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Well, let's get to your background, man. I know you had said something interesting coming in here that ever since you were about 17 years old, you knew you wanted to work for Western Outdoor News.
Yeah, I could take it all the way back to I was a senior in high school. I had never fished saltwater yet. A family friend took me out on a trip. He's like, we'll go tomorrow. So I spent the night at his house, and he said, we're going to go with Pat McDonald from Western Outdoor News. He's a friend of mine. And I'm like, who's Pat McDonald? What's Western Outdoor News? And then he gave me a copy, and I was like, well, wow, like this exists, And, Pat ended up pulling out of that trip, so I didn't get to meet Pat back then, but it put the paper on my radar. I came back, I subscribed, I always had it. Later on, I ended up working in tackle shops down here, so it was just kind of always around. Studied journalism in college, and I mean, indirectly, a lot of the jobs I had, even beyond the tackle shop, like, set the stage for me to get there. Like, I did 5 years in tackle shops while I was in school. I worked at the white sea bass hatchery in Carlsbad.
No, no kidding.
Yeah, for like 2 years.
What were you doing there? Just
I was just a tech, like,
interesting.
anytime the biologist needed, if you're going to get wet or get dirty or have to lift something, we did that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but it was cool. I harvested eggs and tagged fish, and I did, the whole process, fed them when you can barely, see them. I mean, you've been in the facilities, the process, and ultimately I've got to scoop them into the ocean, so
That's cool.
I used to say when I worked in a tackle shop and, after that, when I was teaching people to fish other ways, I always said that, I spend all this time being part of the problem, but, I personally put 10,000 white sea bass in the ocean. So I'm going to be in the black no matter what.
Right.
Yeah. So, after that, I did some, I wrote sports cards for Upper Deck.
Oh, really?
So I wrote, I was writing bios, and that tightened up my my punctuation and all this stuff. And later, I worked at a marketing agency, did social media for Plano and some other outdoor brands, and I did that for a while. And all this time, I'm sending stuff to Western Outdoor News, just writing stuff. Hey, if you want this, print it. I wasn't getting paid for it or anything, but I just kind of kept doing it over that whole time. And eventually Pat would kind of give me assignments. I do a lot of Eastern Sierra stuff too, so I have all these photos, and so I get paid gigs with Pat, and eventually our contract ran out of the agency that I was doing the work for Plano for. And I'm like, well, I'm about to be unemployed. I told Pat, I'm like, hey, how about I just come in on Mondays and help you guys out, help you proof the paper, just kind of be in the newsroom the day that it's being produced. And he's like, okay. And to be honest, when I was in there, I didn't even know I was getting paid. Like until I got a paycheck 2 weeks in, I was like, wow, Pat, Pat let me come in here. And, eventually I got hired to do Mondays and Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. And they're like, how about a fourth day? How about a fifth day? And yeah, honestly, by the time I got there, I'd given up on the idea of work there full time. Like, I was sending stuff. I'm like, man, I'm in a pretty good spot right now. I'm still in the game full time with the Plano stuff.
Right.
And I can write whatever I want and get paid for it to Western Outdoor News. If I don't want to do it for a month, I don't have to. So I was feeling pretty good about it. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm okay now. But when I got offered a job, like, I never thought it was going to happen at that point. So that was 20 years. I was 37. I'm 46 now. I was 37 when I walked into that door. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's been a long,
Wow.
long road, but
That's epic, man.
yeah,
It's
it's
a long road, but you're there.
yeah, it's great to be there. Yeah. It's fun.
When you were going to school, where did you go to school, by the way?
I just community. I went to Palomar College. It's just community college. I got an AA in journalism.
Nice.
But they have a real working newspaper there, and it was an award-winning newspaper. So I really, learned that part of it, laying out pages and that kind of stuff. And even with technology changing so much, it's still a lot of the same stuff that I learned. I mean, we were using the same software I was using there until like last year. We finally changed, and so there's a lot of old stuff. I mean, it's still, there's print now and there's digital, and I get to play with both. And yeah, it's fun.
Huh. Interesting. When you were in school back then, did you have like a plan in your mind other than Western Outdoor News, like a backup plan?
Well, I wanted to write sports mostly, and I actually, when I graduated, I interviewed with the San Diego Union Tribune,
Okay.
and it was just to be like go to high school football games Friday nights and come back and write it up, and I had a couple interviews, and then I remember after one of the interviews, I'm driving home and I get stuck in the Miramar traffic, just dead stop. And I'm just sitting there, and I literally decided I didn't want to do it in traffic, like on the way back.
Yeah.
So that's when I got into, I think that's when I went to the hatchery, after that, because that was between like the tackle shops and the hatchery. I was kind of looking into that. But other than that, I mean, there's not a lot of fishing, I mean, there's Field and Stream and all that stuff, but
Right.
still, you know, you're not going to be full time at it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of Western Outdoor News or nothing, you know. But, you know, I dug the paper so much, and I was so familiar with their style and the writers and everything that I'm just glad it worked out.
Have you always been like, or has your interest always been in fishing and the outdoors ever since like you were little and all that?
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I didn't fish salt until I was 17. But, you know, growing up, I had a grandpa with a motorhome. So we went to campgrounds. I went to Montana and that thing.
Oh, wow.
And then my dad, he took me up to Crystal Lake in the San Gabriel Mountains. And, you know, that was when I first started catching trout. And when my dad saw that me and my brother dug that, he's like, well, I used to go to this Eastern Sierra with my dad. So we started doing that. And I was really a hardcore, like I still am a hardcore Eastern Sierra trout guy, but that's kind of where it started. But yeah, I mean, I got the job at the tackle shop right out of high school. So I've always kind of liked teaching people how to fish. And that's, you know, a tackle shop was a great way to do it while I was going to school.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, do you prefer saltwater over freshwater now?
No, it's kind of a weird hybrid. Like you don't see too many Sierra salt guys.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't do a lot of freshwater bass fishing or fish in the lakes around here. I mean, I will. You know, I've been lucky enough to, I married into a Michigan family. So when I visit there, you know, I said, I want to catch smallmouth was something I really wanted to do.
Nice.
And I'm like, we're a half hour away from Lake St. Clair, which is the smallmouth capital of the planet.
Yeah.
You know, might as well do it there. So I got to do it there.
When in Rome, right?
Right. So I'm like, I try to fish wherever I go somehow. Like little vacations, I'll bring pack rods and stuff like that. But I get asked that from my friends a lot, like if I had to pick fresh or salt, you know, really I'm picking from the Pacific Ocean and the Eastern Sierra. I don't know, it might be salt just because I live here.
Yeah.
Like I can do that whenever I want. You know?
Right.
You know, I went to the Sierra 5 times this year, and that was the most I've ever done. It was a record, but still, that's only 5 times compared to I can go fish the surf.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
or the bays, or, you know, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys the opportunities that are out here.
Where's your favorite spots in the Sierras to fish?
We fish a lot of like backcountry lakes. You know, we'll hike in and catch brook trout or maybe even goldens sometimes. I just actually started fishing Lake Crowley about 5 years ago. Like I've been going my whole life and never fished
Right.
Crowley. Like it was just, to us, it was kind of a big, intimidating lake. Like we didn't have a boat. So and we're used to creek hopping and stuff like that. But we started going up in October and renting a boat at Crowley and then doing that, and that's a lot of fun. So we're really fired up about Crowley right now. It kind of changed, it evolves.
Yeah.
Like we'll always hike the backcountry and stuff like that, but we have drive up lakes we go to.
You fish Sabrina?
Yeah, that was when I first started going with my dad. We stayed on in Bishop Creek Canyon.
Yep.
And now we go all the way to Mammoth and kind of base out of there. But that's one of the first lakes I ever fished. Bishop Creek right there and
Through
Sabrina.
Cardinal Village and all that?
Cardinal Village is the first place we stayed. Like
I love that place.
When we went, my dad had the pamphlet from when he went,
Oh, wow.
and it said, you know, $10 a night, $15 a night. And my dad bought it and like, you know, tried to show it to him, like, can we get these prices? But
Yeah. Do you accept this?
right, is this valid?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a hard question between Sierra and fresh saltwater. But like I said, it's probably salt.
Well, it's probably different memories too, right? I mean, with, you know, when it comes to, because I was the same way where we grew up going, you know, to even like down the road to Lake Skinner and going and fish over there and going camping and everything. And then I really didn't get introduced into saltwater until I was like maybe 10 or 11 or something. Ever since then, I haven't really looked back. But other than that, like I still have those fond memories of, you know, just going down Lake Skinner,
Right.
going camping. It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never stop going to the Sierras. You know, I bring my own kids now. You know, and that'll always be there.
I was going to ask you that. As a father now, going back, you know, in time when your dad took you and all that, how special is that as it comes kind of full circle for you?
It's cool because my dad's still going, so he's seen it again, and and I know that, you know, it can be hard. I've got 3 kids, you know, between 6 and 12, And I'm like, you've got to take them to a place where they're going to get bit, and I think the last trip they came on, they were only there for the first half of the week, and I was there for a whole week. So those first 3 days, I didn't even bring my own rod. I'm just like,
Right.
you're just bouncing from one to the other. And luckily, we got into fish right away. And my oldest is pretty fired up about it, and she's competitive about everything. My middle girl is 10, and she's more of a artsy type, and she's like, yeah, okay, I got one, but I'm going to go check this out. And then my 6-year-old boy, he's just like, I want to catch tuna. I want to catch a tuna. And because, he sees them on TV and stuff. I'm like, dude, you got to catch a sand bass first, man. So.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's really cool. Let's kind of delve back into the paper, right? So you're, what is your role at Western Outdoor News?
Now I'm managing editor.
Managing editor, okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. So I'm the only in-house editor in the office. We have a North editor, Dave Hurley. We have a saltwater editor, Merritt McRae, who you know. And we have freelancers all over the state and beyond. I mean, we've got our Baja guy. Pat still writes some stuff for us on occasion. So, I manage all these writers who kind of manage themselves at this point. I mean, there's guys who've been writing for Western Outdoor News for 30 years. This is our 70th year this year. Our next paper is actually the 70th anniversary paper.
Oh, wow.
We're going to we've been putting all kinds of I'm kind of getting sidetracked here.
We've
been putting all kinds of throwback stuff because there's stacks of all the old papers everywhere.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, we've been putting that in, and people have told me that they really dig it. And this next issue is going to have a bigger one of those. Getting back to my role there, it's just wrangling all the stuff that comes in from all over the place every week. Building the papers on Mondays when it's press day, and planning for future special sections and stuff.
So when you have the actual paper copy and the digital edition as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to the paper copy, kind of going old school there, what's the whole process? Press day is Monday, and then it goes to the printer at some other day, and then
it actually goes Sunday is actually a work day for me. I work from home on Sundays.
Okay.
That's when I get a lot of the materials. But still, in the office on Monday, it's still coming in Monday morning up till about noon. And while it's coming in, we're building it, we're proofing it, and our goal is to be out of there by 4:30. And it goes to print that night. When I show up the next morning on Tuesday, we're maybe the first hour, our guy's going to come in with a box of samples of, here it is. So it happens pretty quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. And so has it always been like that for 70 years where it's always been Mondays and all that, or has it changed?
It's been, I can't speak for 70 years, but
what, you don't know?
No, I used to ask all the time some of the old school guys, the procedures and stuff. How'd you do this without email?
Yeah.
And they were telling me stories about guys, we would send a guy to Lake Shasta for something going on up there, and he would dictate it over the phone, and somebody's typing it back, and I'm like, oh man, that's real newsroom stuff right there.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd about that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I mean, as far as I can remember, growing up, reading the paper, being a subscriber, I always got it on Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's been happening on Mondays like that for a long time.
And
Plus you allow that weekend to happen. So if people are fish all weekend, the last thing you want is somebody to catch a huge fish or some big story to happen, and we got to sit on it.
Yeah.
So as far as I can remember, that's been how it's going.
As but the difference, obviously, there's plenty of difference between the digital copy and the paper copy and all that. Are there any differences as far as the process goes versus online versus, I guess, in paper?
Not so much in the building. I mean, we have Allie in production, handles both of them. I don't do anything different. I know for if you're a subscriber, you get the digital. You can get a digital only subscription, but if you get the print, you do get the digital too. and those people will get it on like Tuesday morning, like immediately.
Yeah.
Instead of, if it comes in the mail, it depends on where,
Right.
where you live. And digital, everything's in color, and you can zoom in on stuff, and you can save stuff and search the issues and the whole art. I mean, there's about 4 years of digital archives on there if you want to look back at stuff. But as far as producing it, it's not much different.
Are you I know these guys exist. Are you I need a physical copy in hand and read it kind of guy? Or are you just as satisfied with the online edition?
There was no digital. I mean, now there's just papers everywhere, so I'll read that. But for certain tasks in the office, like we need to find something, I'm not looking through a bunch of papers. I'm looking through the digital. So we have so many like long time readers. Like that's why the print part is always there. Like especially since the shows came back. That's where we get a lot of subscribers, and I always kind of take a look at the makeup of the people in line subscribing at the shows, and it's a lot of guys who've been there forever. They all say when they were on the cover or when they got in, but I was surprised over the last few years with, post 2020, how many younger people are in there subscribing. And
it's good.
And I know they like to get their picture in there because a lot of the stuff that I find, I'm always scouring like Instagram. I'm like, I kind of live on social when I'm out of the office because, if somebody catches a big fish, that's where it's going first.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of stories that way, and I tell the people, it'll be in this issue, and they'll be like, oh, send me one. And, it's I think that's kind of what starts it all. But, personally, if I'm reading anything else, I'm kind of a print guy. I've never read a book on a Kindle or something like that, but I do a lot of online research and stuff like that.
Right.
There's certain uses for both personally. Yeah.
Interesting. I know when it comes to the cover, I mean, it's almost like that's when you made it in fishing. It's when if you have your picture on any cover of Western Outdoor News, you've made it. Your life is pretty much complete. At least your fishing life is complete, and that's basically it. It's still the same way. It still has the same notoriety and the same meaning, I guess, to all the anglers.
I can't argue with that, 100%. My one of my bluefin that I caught earlier this year made it in Western Outdoor News. So my mom, she called me and she goes, "You were in the paper. You were in the paper." She's like, "I'll send it to you." So she ended up sending me the clipping of me and my fish and the article that was written, and now it's on my refrigerator door.
Hell yeah.
I've received bribes.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
I think the best one I got was an offer of $500 cash and free chiropractic work. And it was a good photo, and it could have made the cover. But thankfully, I'm not the only voice on the cover. Like a lot of things go into the covers. Like I get emails, "Hey, this is a cover shot." I'm like, okay, well, all I can guarantee is that I'll put it in the running, But a lot of things go into what gets on the cover.
I was gonna say, what's the process?
It depends. Like if all of a sudden, it's all of a sudden Dorado pop up all over the place. It's like, well, we should try and get a Dorado cover, and we'll make an effort to get a certain flavor of one. Other times, on the other end of the spectrum, it's like it's Monday and we don't have a cover yet. That's kind of happens around this time of year in January. Not as many people are fishing.
If you need photos, I can shoot you some, man.
Yeah, you guys, do it. You can do it all day long. We love that. Because if something doesn't get on the cover and it's good, we'll still use it on the inside, like Tony said. But we've had times where we're freaking out over we don't have a cover yet. And some of we get photos that are cover worthy, but they're not, the quality isn't there. They're too small a file because it has to be vertical.
Oh, yes.
Or it's sent from an Android.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. Like, I can't believe sometimes, like, I'll get a photo and it'll be a 75K file. And I'm like, I don't even think I can try and do that. Like, what phones these days are shooting that low?
Yeah.
But we try and tell people, how do I get on the cover? I'm like, okay, shoot vertical, leave a lot of wiggle room around, because we got to put headlines around you, and
Right.
A lot goes into it that way. But like say if this Eastern Sierra opener, just as an example, is coming up, we'll want a trout cover, so we'll look at for certain things. But
When is the opener?
last Saturday of April every year. So it's not a certain date, but it's always that last Saturday of April. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've seen framed covers. I've seen people, like Tonie said, hers is on the wall, her picture. People send me pictures of their cover from the 80s on the wall, or people will call and say, I was on the paper in the early 80s. Can you find it for me?
Oh,
you're gonna have to do a little better than that. I'm like, if you give me a month and a year, maybe there's a shot, but not if you're telling me like sometime between 81 and 84.
Yeah. Well, I bet you anything. I've never been to Western Outdoor News, but I can imagine there's probably all kinds of archives all over the place where, you have pictures over here, and I'm guessing you guys keep a catalog of every issue, right?
Every single thing. It's kind of funny. It's literally all around us now. Like, we had a warehouse that had all this stuff in it, and maybe we had a few years in a shelf. But we got all the stuff out of the warehouse, and now it's just like, if this was our office, it'd be all over the place.
Wow.
So, a lot of them are in these bound books, that have the year on them, the year range.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, if someone knows when they were in it, we can find them in those. But, but yeah, there's history all over the place. Like, I found this book on eBay that was produced by Western Outdoor News in like the early 80s, and it was like a fishing almanac. That's cool. I paid $35 for it. And then the next week I found it like in some drawer in the office. I'm like, well, that's great. But yeah, you're always running across, you open some drawer and you see old cool stuff, laying around.
When you had mentioned earlier that you were publishing kind of old archival issues and all that stuff, that's just because you guys are hitting 70 years right now, right?
Yeah, we decided to do it to kind of celebrate the 70-year thing. So we've been doing it since the first issue of January. But I don't know. I mean, the feedback we get on it, maybe we would keep going.
That's cool.
Like I said, I'm surrounded by the content.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes we'll do the 90s. And sometimes we do super old ones.
It's like doing Throwback Thursday on Instagram.
Yeah.
When that was a thing.
Yep, exactly. I mean,
One of the shows last year, Brad was walking around with a box of old papers, and he gave me 2 of them, and I still got them at home.
Yeah. There's
Looking through those, checking out the prices of stuff back then. It's like, man.
that's fun too.
That's depressing.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I think seeing all those things where, you had mentioned pricing, all the different, I guess, counts too, even the old boats too, the sport boats that were around back then.
Yeah.
Or the ones that are still around now but have different names. It's really cool just to kind of dive into history and all that. Yeah. Do you offer that kind of service where, I was on the cover of this issue and all that? Can you print it for me? Or
if it's an old one, we'll scan it, and kind of send them a PDF of it. The newer stuff, like from the last, 15 years or so, we still have all the PDFs. So we can send them a nicer look. Because if you were on it in 1995, that newsprint's not going to be in great shape anymore. But if you have a picture of it in a PDF, you can tinker with it in Photoshop, brighten it up or whatever, print it on good paper. So we'll do that if we can find them.
Nice. Nice.
So your warehouse is lined, right, with content. So obviously 70 years ago, you weren't able to have digital copies, right? So now, do you have an archive where, maybe everything was scanned, or there's some kind of archival process that you can go, I want to look up this from the 80s or this issue, and there's a PDF version of it there?
Not other than the ones that we have digital issues of, we cannot. It's just, and I've joked like we should do like a whole digital archive of everything. But it would be such an undertaking. When we had them in the warehouse, they were to the ceiling. I mean, it was 20 feet high, and there were just those file boxes. you know, and it's scribbled on the box like what year's in there, you know. So I don't know. I don't know.
It's like straight out of those old movies of like the sliding ladder and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it was. We had one of those to get to the top.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
Nice.
now, you know, it's actually a lot easier now to have them all over the office. But it would be cool to do that, like, you know, because I see names of guys. I found a neighbor's dad. I'm like,
Oh,
said
wow.
his last. You know, I don't recognize that last name. I email him like, you know, this person, and you know, we caught some big yellowtail in the '60s. You know, so I think it would be cool if people knew their parents were in it or something like that, or the grandparents were in it. You know, but another thing that I've noticed, and I know you guys could appreciate this, is when I'm looking at these old issues and I'm reading editorials and stuff, that they're fighting a lot of the same type of battles. you know, like with limits and regs and licenses and all that stuff. Like a lot of it seems really familiar when
Oh,
I'm
my
reading
gosh.
Oh, yeah.
decades old
Nonstop.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's good that, you know, I guess we're not in short supply of that. But I guess that follows us through generation and generation.
Right.
So there's been something, let's change gears here. There's been something that's been on our minds. And this is this story about the salmon that was caught down here. Give us the scoop. Spill all the details that you can. Tell us about it.
Okay, I'll take it from when I first heard about it. I got a photo from a local freshwater guide who gives me just, you know, he fishes Otay and stuff. So if he does good and gets good photos, he sends me an email. So it's just a source on what's going on. I've got a long list of them. He sends me a photo and it's got this guy holding the salmon, and he says, you know, this guy just caught this morning in the San Diego River, but don't say anything about it. Like, he didn't want me to say anything. He says, I'm just sharing it with you. He doesn't really want it to share it at all. So at the beginning,
So let's send it to a newspaper source.
well, no, I've always said, I tell these guys, I said, I will never burn your spots. You know, if there's something, if there's a bait or something you're using, and, you know, if you don't want to say exactly what it is, I can say it was on a big trout imitating swim bait. You know, I can just dance around it out of respect for my sources.
Yeah.
To get
Good
this
for you.
information, like I
Good
will
for you.
never like spot burn or bait burn or any
Yeah.
other burn.
Yeah.
If they tell me they don't want it in, I don't put it in. So I'm like, well, thanks for sharing it. You know, this is pretty cool. But you know, if he decides he wants to talk to somebody though, like I hope you tell him to talk
Give
to
him
me.
my number.
So then another one of my sources from Skinner, Jimmy, you know, the guy who guides for stripers out there.
Yeah, I've
Jimmy
heard of
Wynn.
him,
He's like, dude, I got your cover shot. And I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of crazy. I'm going to see two cool photos in the same day. He sends me the exact same photo. Like, both of these guys knew the guy personally. But, you know, by the end of the day, I'm like, do you think he'll want to talk? And they're like, yeah, I kind of think he will. So I'm like, cool. And I'm just waiting to hear from the guy. Well, then it goes all of Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so the guy just gave them to go ahead. They went ahead and shared it. So we just shared one of those, like on Instagram. We didn't have any info yet. And I was like, well, I'll talk to the guy eventually and get his part of the story eventually.
Yeah.
You know, and you know how things work on Facebook. Like, you know, all the judges come out.
Everyone says it's fake. It's not true.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is a guy who has almost no social presence. You know, there's no reason for him to like he's just a very under the radar guy.
Yeah.
It turns out he didn't know what it was. Like, he caught it and he thought it was
It was just a big fish.
he was fishing for bass. He was fishing a chatterbait for bass. And he caught this he just thought it was a huge stock trout that got in there somehow. There was a guy, I don't know if you noticed in the photo, there's a float tube in the photo. I thought it was the angler, but it was another guy who was there, who just got out to take the picture. That guy didn't know what it was either.
Oh, my God.
He was like, I was here all day, and I've been fishing here all day, and you walk up and catch this. And it was his buddies, the guides, who told him, you know, that's a salmon, you know. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I've never really fished for salmon. I've accidentally caught one on a boat on Oceanside once. But I have contacts in the north, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what am I looking at? And they're like, well, it doesn't have its fin clipped, and I think that's a hatchery thing.
Yeah, the adipose fin.
Right. Yeah,
Go
they
back.
said it's not clipped. A couple people said it looks like it's been in fresh water for a while based on the color it was. And the guy was like, he was just such a humble, like not the guy you would think would have such a impactful,
Right.
photo. He was like, I could fish an hour and a half a day. If I get to an hour, my wife's calling me, when are you coming home? So he's like, that's the type of fishing he does, when he can just jump out and cast into the river or something like that. But as far as like, what was it doing there? Like, I don't know. And there were some suggestions that it wasn't the San Diego River in the photo, that it was Sacramento River or something like that. But in the whole photo, you can see a building in the background. My buddy who works there, I'm like, hey, I send it to him. I'm like, what building is that? And he kind of figures it out. I mean, we had it triangulated on, Google Maps, exactly where it was. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say like, hey guys, it's this building at this part of the river. That's where he was. But it was definitely the San Diego River.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
Any idea on how old it might have been?
I don't know. Do you have any idea?
I mean, so the article said it was a king, right? Salmon generally live anywhere, depending on the species, like 4 to 6 years on average. That's
That's
their
not
lifespan.
old.
Yeah.
That's not old. So that thing wasn't there very long.
Yeah, and some of the contacts from the Golden State Salmon Association that I also used in the article, they were telling me about tag studies of how far away from where a fish was tagged, and it's over 1,000 miles. Like,
Wow.
like it's possible. It's the ocean. I mean, we've all seen weird stuff,
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it was one of our biggest stories, on the internet, like as far as eyeballs and stuff like that, and it was fun to do. I wish we had better photos. That was really the best photo of it, and it wasn't a great photo, So
I do remember that.
Yeah, so if someone's gonna fake that with Photoshop and is that good at it, they made it look poor quality.
They
also.
deserve it. Oh man. Have you? Yeah, go for it.
No, that photo, when it came out, I sent it over to my dad because we grew up fishing for salmon in Alaska. So my dad was a big fly fisherman. We did the whole flossing deal, And when I sent it over to him, he's like, oh my gosh, that looks like one genetically modified salmon.
Yeah.
That's not the salmon that we're used to seeing up there. And he was talking about how there used to be steelhead up in one of the Malibu rivers. I don't know if it's called the Malibu River or one of the rivers up
Rivers
there.
around. I mean, there's rivers that the Santa Margarita River, the one you drive over and when you go over Camp Pendleton. Those are all historical steelhead waters, and I know we're talking salmon or steelhead, but I mean we've had trout type stuff going on like historically in these creeks. Still, I'd love to know how and under what circumstances.
Too bad that thing wasn't tagged, so you could figure that out.
Yeah. I know there's been a whole bunch of crazy stuff in the past and all that, but as far as 2023 is concerned, has that been like the craziest thing that you've seen on the paper for this year?
I think so.
Talk about a great end to a year.
Right. Yeah. That actually wasn't our biggest story of the year. Our biggest story, as far as web hits, was, and this is a freshwater story, was a guy caught a 20-some pound brown trout out of Upper Twin Lake by Bridgeport in the Sierra. And
Wow.
it was the same thing. Like first, I mean, I actually got on that one real early, and we kind of broke that one. And people reacted like, oh, there's nobody that's 20 pounds. Look how he's holding it, and all that stuff. I'm like, this was caught at a lake in the California that produced the lake record brown, or the state record brown trout. And like 5 of the top 15, they have a certified scale. Like there's a reason for it. I mean, I talked to the guy at the dock who put it on the scale, and I interviewed this guy, and this guy like dedicates his retired life to fishing for big brown trout. Like he retired, he bought a boat specifically to do that and nothing else. And he lives at the lake all summer. Like he's retired. He lives in an RV in the campground. Huh. And then he leaves when the snow comes and comes back. And
Wow.
But that was our biggest hitter, and it was very similar to the salmon in how we got the story and threw it out there, and people reacted to it.
Oh my gosh. That's unbelievable. A 20-pound brown trout.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like holding a yellowtail.
yeah.
That's what he looked like.
Yeah.
What was the previous record? Do you know offhand?
Well, that wasn't a state record. It was like in the top 5 all time in the state.
So it wasn't a record?
No, that wasn't a state record. No.
Oh, wow.
I think it might have been the biggest caught, like Twin Lakes, Bridgeport are 2 connected lakes. That might have been the biggest for upper, and they're connected. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a difference that is, but I put it in the story what the record was, but it's in the high 20s. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
You mentioned a degree of fact checking that you have to do when you go through, some of the photos that you're that are being sent to you. How often do you come across a photo or a story where you go, I don't know, and you find out that maybe it's not the truth?
There are times when it's not. I mean, when people are sending me fishing photos, there's no telling when a fish was actually caught. So that I have my network of trusted. I mean, there's a lot of people in there now, but if anything, even if I think the way this guy's holding this fish, and he claims it's 15 pounds, I know everyone's gonna think it's 8 pounds. So maybe I won't put a weight in the caption. I'll just go, this guy caught this huge sheephead. And then all the other information I know, just because I know there's going to be blowback, even though I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, So, anglers by nature, they're always
Fish stories.
It's
Especially
never
this guy.
What?
it's always been that way. Like, our grandparents joked about lying in photos, of
course. Or how it gets bigger every year.
Yeah. The longer ago it was.
Yeah.
So that, a lot of it's just trust. Really, if someone sends you a photo, you only have his word for it, and as long as the story's not too ridiculous, we've had some bad ones that we just won't run. It's like when it's really bad. We had a photo of a white sea bass that was under 10 pounds, and the guy said it was like 30.
Oh.
And
You can tell the sea bass of a picture.
Yeah,
That's
like,
not 30 pounds.
I'm not putting this in.
Yeah. Is it more so like a gut feeling, like on your end? Like you've seen quite a bit.
Yeah. You just kind of know, and I'm sure stuff slips through. It's just from the sheer volume of it all. Like, something's going to get through. Like I had somebody send me a photo of a big striper from Diamond Valley Lake. And it was legit. They had it on a scale, and then later I found out someone saw them and they found it floating, and they actually said, "I'm going to get in Western Outdoor News with this. Watch." Oh. And that kind of stuff. That's very rare. Yeah. But I was like, okay. Guess who's never getting in here again?
Yeah.
Well, kind of on the same line about fish and stuff. Have you guys, besides the most recent one that's been in the news a lot with the whole weights and fish thing?
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys come across anything like that prior? Where they cheat so bad?
You know what? If you got Billy Egan, our tournament director, has a story from, and I don't want to butcher the details on it because he knows all of them, but there was a situation where he was doing a bass tournament and there was something like that going on, But other than that, we don't have a lot of catch and kill tournaments, where you're going to stuff a fish. So yeah, I haven't got much of that, but it's got to happen.
Well, it has to happen so much because doing research into that, I guess tournaments in Japan, they would actually wave a wand around the fish to make sure there's nothing in them.
Yeah.
Little metal detector.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's actually genius.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, it's sad that it has to come to that point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Very sad.
The amount of money and boats on the line and stuff like that, it's like it's got to come to that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, throughout the year, I know, we had talked about, November's usually, or I think November, the tuna jackpot, and there's all these different tournaments throughout the year, different events. What's typically your year like? Do you get to go out on the road quite a bit just with work and all that, or do you get to go fish at all too?
Yeah, I get to do some of our events. Like I go out to Striper Derby at Havasu in May. Usually I get to cover the Sierra Trout Opener. I get to do the shows, and I'll do shows on my day. As many days as you want me at the shows. I still love the shows.
Oh, okay.
And we have charters that we do, and I will host a few of them a year. I do the like overnighters and maybe full day stuff. It won't keep me out of the office too long. But there's opportunities to be in the field. I'll go to day at the docks. I mean, we'll have a booth there, but I'll just go for the fun of it. Bring my kid. But we get to do stuff like that.
That actually does make sense now that I think about it, where because of the nature of your business where you have quick turnarounds and all that, you really can't be away from the office for terribly long.
Yeah. That's why I haven't been at a lot of the Juan Bass stuff, because it's gone 4 days. The Sierra Openers on a weekend, so I can kind of pull that off. Plus I get home Sunday afternoon and I can still do my Sunday stuff. Yeah. So a lot of it, most of what I can and can't do is based on where it lands on the calendar. The main reason I couldn't go to Cabo this year is because, I've got a full slate of stuff to do on Sunday, and I wouldn't have been back until Sunday night. And there's just no way around that. Last year I was on my laptop in the hotel room doing it, but it wouldn't have been possible this year. So it's really just wherever it falls on the schedule. Like next week or next month, I'm going to the Berkeley. They invited me to an event in Houston where it's like all the science of Berkeley, and it's held at NASA. And
oh, wow.
So they're going to do a thing there where we get to check out all their new baits, and they're going to tell us all the scientific stuff that goes into them. So
that's cool.
Stuff like that pops up. And I'm almost been there for 10 years, and I still really dig stuff like that.
Oh, I would dig that.
Yeah.
A Berkeley event, science-based.
But I wish I can go on more charters. It's cool to, not only just talk to people, but fish with them, with readers and stuff. We have like multi-day ones, that other guys will host. But I do like getting out there.
That's cool. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the end of 2023, but any big exciting stuff or any big exciting plans for you or the paper in 2024?
There's on the freshwater side, there's been a lot of big news going on. Like we have a partnership with Bassmaster now, and there's now our tournament circuit, our One Bass tournament circuit is a legitimate path for Western anglers to earn their way to the Bassmaster Classic.
Oh, nice.
So we have that partnership going on. There's another, there's more big news on that front that we can't talk about until January.
Yeah.
So freshwater guys, stay tuned for that. On the saltwater side, we're starting to build our charters for next year, like our full charter list. They're all listed on the website. There's not much on there now, but usually between now and like maybe the end of February, it's pretty beefed up. So anything from, multi-day into Mexico, that's kind of the stuff our sales guys are working on now, is populating that. Last year we had, it's funny, it was called the Big Fish Challenge, where it was a 10-week event where you can fish for prizes and the big grand prize package. And when you sent your thing for your event, and I'm like, look, it's the CCA Big Fish Challenge. We're talking about making some changes to that. Instead of being a 2-week thing, it might just be a 1-day thing. But not a lot of that's locked in yet. And it all builds towards Cabo again. It never ceases to amaze me how early I hear them being our general manager and the sales guys and everybody and Billy, how early they start working on the Cabo Tuna Jackpot, which is in November. Like it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they're taking calls in February, and setting the stage for that thing. So yeah, it's everything's been moving really fast since 2020. Since we built new websites, we got really active on social. The digital end of it and the events evolving. It's all happened really fast in the last few years.
Was when we had COVID in 2020 and all that, did that kind of expedite a plan that you guys may have had to go full on digital and all that, or was that just the nature of the beast?
No, it was when that happened. We always talked about leading up to 2020. There was always talk about we need a new website, and then we needed, but it was always just kind of talk. And then COVID happened. We were working from home. We were filling a paper with content when barely anyone was fishing. It was a really challenging time. And when we came back, our new GM, Brad, he comes from television, production. And he was just we've talked about this. Instead of talking about these things, let's just do it. So that's been kind of our attitude since 2020. And that's why in a 70-year-old paper, in the last 3 years, they've really changed and really grown, and we're still looking to tinker with it. So I expect a lot more of that, next year.
Yeah.
So,
well, I know for sure. Over the last, at least definitely the last handful of years, I know you've always hit me up about content and all that, and I thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to really just kind of give you content whenever we need to get out. And it's almost like it's not even a question. It's it's always done automatic.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I tell I've told you, and I've told I say abuse me. I mean, be annoying. I especially the CCA stuff. When the fishing license stuff was happening, we couldn't get enough of it out there, and that printing that or putting it online and including some kind of call to action is something I've tried to be more aware of, over the last few years. So yeah, keep doing it.
Well, I know for sure in 2024 there's going to be no shortage of content with our star tournament and all that, which we'll talk about here in depth on the podcast. But it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah,
you were saying that your office was going nuts once we made the announcement.
Yeah, because I saw it came in. I wasn't in the office when that email came, and I saw it. I'm like, oh, they're doing a tournament, but I didn't read the whole thing. And then I came into the office, and Brad was like, hey, you gonna run something this week on that new CCA thing? And I was like, sure. And someone's like, well, what's CCA thing? And then it kind of got circulated. And someone's like, they got a Parker. And I didn't even know at that point. I dug in. And I was like, wow, there it is. I saw the photo of it. I'm like, that is really cool.
There's some great prizes to go along with that.
Yeah. And I know you guys said you're going to talk about it on a future pod, but is it something that goes on regionally already? That's what it...
Yeah. So basically, if you're familiar with CCA in other states, CCA Texas, Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina, Alabama, all these other states, they have a star tournament. And so it originated from the acronym State of Texas Angler Rodeo. Now it's State Tournament Angler Rodeo, I think. And basically in other states, they're giving away not just one Parker, not just one boat, but they're giving away multiples of center consoles and trucks and combos and gift certs. And even on the youth side, they're giving away 20, 30K in scholarship money too. So it's a big deal. And we're trying to live up to that hype here in California.
It's
so
cool.
it's going to be awesome.
I'm looking forward to that one.
I heard at one point, maybe it was the Texas side, you had to go to the Ford dealer, pick up your truck before you had to go get your boat.
Yeah. I
How
kid
awesome
you not.
is that?
I was there. I just happened to be there that day in Houston, and they were giving away 5 center consoles to 5 different winners who caught tagged redfish. The kicker was they actually had to go to the local Ford dealership to go pick up their brand new truck that went with the center console.
No, that's rough.
Yeah, I know. It was unbelievable. I think there was 5 or 6 of them in the parking lot. It was just baffling.
Those poor guys.
I know.
Cool.
feel bad, but yeah.
How busy is our May when it comes to CCA stuff?
The month of May.
Yeah.
It's a little bit slower, but we're gonna have 2 banquets in May.
I wonder if we can get out and do the striper tournament.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Oh, Striper Derby?
Yeah, striper derby. That's been a bucket list thing of mine for a while.
Well, I just noticed the other day, yesterday in the office, looking at the calendar, that it's Striper Derby falls on Cinco de Mayo. So you got Lake Havasu, Cinco de Mayo. It's gonna be a special one.
Oh man.
We got a place to stay. My dad lives out there,
Oh, cool.
right close to the water.
Yeah,
I like it.
it's a lot of fun. Like it's a long running event, but it's chill. Like it's one of our, we call it a family event.
Right.
There's people who take it seriously, and
Yeah.
and a lot of them are just there to have a good time.
Good time.
I mean, you've got every type of boat imaginable, like pontoons that barely float, or
Rafts.
right up to like saltwater center consoles, and guys are just buying these boxes full of anchovies and just. But like, I always think about, like, if I was just a reader, like what Western Outdoor News stuff would I participate in, and Striper Derby like at the top of the list.
That's pretty much that's where
Yeah.
We might have to do that then.
I sent you the thing on it.
Okay. Cool. I like it. Well, Mike, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
in.
Glad I finally got to
Yeah.
make it.
Before we get going here, tell us your socials and how do we get in contact with you, and how do we subscribe to Western Outdoor News?
You can, our website's wonews.com. We're very active on Instagram. I think it's just Western Outdoor News on Instagram. We have a Facebook. My personal one is mstevens395 on Instagram. But if you want to send photos and stuff, there's a portal on the website, or you can email them to editors at wonews.com. And my email is mike@wonews.com. So if it goes to editors, I'll get it. But if it needs to come straight to me, photos, stories, anything like that, that's the way in.
Yeah. Cool, man. Funny story. I emailed Mike on his old email address, and it bounced. And I was panicking because I thought Mike left Western Outdoor News.
No, I had the world's most annoying email. It was Mike-S. So I'm telling people, I had to tell everyone Mike-S. That's a minus sign. So I kept both for a while, just for people who only could reach me there, and then we finally killed it. So there's been some casualties, and you were one of them, apparently.
It's all good. It's all good. I know how to get to you now.
Yeah.
But cool, man. Thank you so much for coming in.
No,
really
thanks a lot.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Got
it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have to have you back here in 24 and
Sure.
probably after Striper Derby now that I know it's so much fun.
Or during,
Yeah, or during.
Yeah.
Yeah, have to call in.
while we're out there.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I see what you said.
Picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that is going to do it for this week. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the CCA California podcast. Go follow us on Instagram at CCA California. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.